We're just about at 2 o'clock here, and so I'm just gonna do a really short introduction here. I know some folks are still arriving, so we'll just take a few more minutes. I'm for the folks who just arrived. I'm here on the outdoor walkway outside the martial arts dojo at Chozen-ji in Honolulu, Hawaii, and we have Michele Aboro in Shanghai, China at the Aboro Academy boxing gym. And so the origins of this call, I was actually looking back to find which day you had sent me the message. So, and it was on December 31st this year, I got a message from Michele, and she said, with no explanation, does the Zen temple need a boxing teacher? And with no hesitation, I said yes. And then Michele said, no, seriously. And I said, no, seriously. And so we started having a little bit of a discussion about what that would look like to have some of the kind of training that Michele does in Shanghai, and then some of the training we do here in Zen. And we'll tell you a little bit of the history about how we've been connected and doing this kind of training together over the last, I think it's like 8-9 years now. And so everybody can imagine that was January 1st of this year. We're having this discussion, and a lot has changed since then. But what hasn't changed is all of our, deep belief that this kind of training that Michele does there and the kind of training we do here is critical for creating the kind of people in the world and the kind of courage that we need to make it through tough times. So, a couple housekeeping things. We'll have a chance at the end to have questions. You can type them into the chat. We're gonna kind of give some background here, but then we'll have some time to address that at the end. I know there's also a live stream going on Facebook if for whatever reason Zoom's not working. And if you have to leave early and you want to stay in touch, feel free to leave your email address. There's it'll get dropped in the chat, the website that you can go leave your email address in, and then you can also send a message directly to Chozen-ji if you want, and we'll keep track and keep people posted. And then the last thing is, I just wanted to thank, you're going to see Michele and I on screen today, but behind the scenes, we've gotten, quite a bit of help from Carl on the Shanghai side, from Carl He and Maska Yuan, who are kind of core members of Aboro Academy, Maska being the co-founder there. And then on our side, my multi-talented wife, Christina Moon, has been helping out with the tech and back of house items. So thanks to them for this help. So, we'll get going here. This is gonna be hard to do in a short amount of time, but I was hoping, Michele, we got a lot of people from Hawaii tuning in who've never met you. And if you could just give us some of the quick highlights and tell us the story of kind of where you're from, how you started training, what your professional career looked like, and then kind of how you ended up in Shanghai. So again, thanks, Michele, for doing this today. We really appreciate it.
No, I feel really, really honored. And always doing anything with you, Michael, is a total pleasure. So I was born in London, England. I come from a mixed race family. Mum's Irish, father is African, and we grew up in South London, an area where there is a lot of boxing. Well, England is actually a place where boxing is very much part and parcel of the fabric of life. And it is something when we were kids that we watched a lot on television. So growing up in this area, I was drawn towards a couple of the boxing gyms, but only later on I realized, being a girl, this was not something that women do. It was not allowed by law or by any one of the trainers. So I actually went into karate when I was younger, around about the age of 13. And this is where I first started realizing that martial arts was something that I was quite good at and drawn to from a very young age. Around about the age of, I'd say 17, I met my first trainer who mentored me and is still actually in the background mentoring me to today. His name is Lincoln Boney, and he had a gym in Brixton where he trained young black kids. The majority of kids there were from, you know, they were hard to handle, or they came from backgrounds where their parents didn't have a lot of money. And what he done is he gave up his dojo, it was a dojo because I was doing kickboxing then, to us, and he didn't charge us. So he enabled us to actually start to flourish. In this kickboxing gym, I started competing around the age of 18 in kickboxing and Muay Thai. That was the first time I realized that I had this synergy with competition inside of the ring, actually competing. And the mindset. The thing with Lincoln, which later on started to come back, was he always made us meditate. We were these, you know, 18-year-old kids from the street, a lot of us, and he had us in the middle of this room with a pot of incense, sitting down, meditating. Most of us were looking at him like, you're off your head, you're crazy, you know, what the hell is this gonna do for us? We just wanna fight, you know? But he always said, you know, you need to find the inner peace, your inner side. You need to find that because, you know, society has made you kids so angry. You can use that to fight. But when you get into a situation, it's not going to work for you anymore. You need to find your inner peace. So this man really, really helped me in my younger years. And I found this inner peace, and I was able with him to actually accomplish at the age of 21. I became a world Muay Thai champion and kickboxing world champion. I went on to have around about 25 fights, competitions with him. And not just the competitions, I managed to find peace in myself with him through meditation, through him counseling me, talking to me, a mentor in me, and through him giving me this crazy hard training. There was one time I can remember that we went to the dojo and he said, no, we're going to go up into the small room upstairs. This was the office. He had cleared all the stuff out of this office. It was around about 4x4, and he had put all the heating on in there. And he had us inside of this room sparring with each other. We were dropping on the floor. We were sent to a place where we had never visited before. And he said, you know, if you can experience this now, can you imagine if you will actually in the real world, you'll never experience this, but you're able to deal with it if it ever happens. So he was training us for this, I don't know, apocalypse that was about to come, and putting us in a mindset, in a place where anything was possible and we could deal with anything. At the time, I didn't see it as that. I just saw it as training that was going to kill me. But as my life spanned on, I saw that it was able to put me in a place where I could deal with situations very calmly and very easily, because it gave me that fortitude, that bottom line. After I trained with Lincoln for around about 10 years, I actually got scouted by one of the top Dutch kickboxing schools, and I went over to Holland. I spent nearly 22 years in Holland, but in them 22 years, I changed from kickboxing into boxing because somebody had seen me and asked me to be a sparring partner. And I went over to over to Germany, sorry, and for a sparring session, and ended up getting a contract as a professional boxer. So a long story short, I started off my life looking at a sport that I was told I would never ever be able to do. I ended my career being a world champion in a sport I was told I would never ever be able to do. Because of this individual that I met called Lincoln Boney that gave me the resilience through training to be able to believe that anything was possible. And I kept that thread throughout my life and kept pushing forward and believing that one day I would be a world champion. It may sound a bit weird to a lot of people out there, but you know, it was only in 1996 in England that they allowed women to box professionally. So through some fate, I was able to find a way through the life to be able to get into another country, which was Germany, get signed by one of the biggest promoters actually at that time in the world, and have a great career and finish as a undefeated world champion in boxing. After I retired, because everybody needs to retire one day, even though when we're athletes, we believe we're going to live forever and we're never going to retire. I didn't want to be a coach. I told myself I didn't want to be a coach because in my head, I couldn't coach. I didn't know how to coach regular people. I knew how to implement, because that's what I was taught to do throughout my whole life, was to be told something to implement it. But to be able to teach what I know to somebody else takes a whole different set of skills. And I hadn't grown them skills. So when I retired from boxing, I actually went back to school and I studied sound engineering, which is totally different than actual boxing. And I actually went off and started touring with different bands and doing sound for different bands actually around the world. In this time, I really felt that I had lost the meaning of who I was and what I was meant to do. So Muska has been a friend of mine for nearly 20 years. I've known her for 20 years. And she always has said to me, like, you know, Michele, it's a sin if you know something and you don't pass it on. You know, you have all this knowledge, and if you don't pass it on, you just leave it with yourself. That's a shame, because your teacher's done this for you. So basically, I started going back and teaching a little bit when I was doing the sound engineering. Came to around about 29, and then Muska was in Shanghai. She was doing some background on a book that she was writing about how females sit in the family in China. I didn't realize that basically females in Chinese families are second-class citizens. They don't get the rights that the male counterpart in the family would get. So I had a bit of a break from one of the tours, and I said to her, I'll come over and see you. I thought it was Singapore. I was getting confused, you know, and then she said, no, I'm in Shanghai. So I ended up coming to Shanghai in 2009, and I arrived here, and to my surprise, it was this metropolis, this you know, really futuristic looking city compared to the West. It was, you know, miles ahead. But being here, I thought there would be so much more sports, but there wasn't. There was hardly any like boxing or kickboxing, the kind of sports that grow in the West. So while being here and visiting Muska, I started saying to her, you know, it might be a good idea actually to open up a gym in Shanghai. I left, Muska went back to Holland, and in the year that followed, we started talking about opening a gym. And this went from actually just a mental idea into us selling everything we owned in Holland and moving to Shanghai. Never ever taught a class in Shanghai. We didn't have nobody here that actually could help us with a gym in Shanghai. And along the way, we managed to put the right people around us and managed to be able to have a Aboro Academy in 2014. There was a lot of adversities going through it. One of the ones was in 2012. We arrived here in the beginning of 2011. In 2012, I got diagnosed with breast cancer. So at that stage, I thought everything that we came here to do was over. We needed to go back to Europe and give up this crazy dream that everybody told us we were doing. And especially when all of our friends and family found out that I had cancer, they were like, that's it. You know, what the hell do you want to be in China for? There's nobody there. There's no support unit. Nobody's going to help you. But there was a support unit. There was this group of people that we've met. There was this vibrant community that we started to build. And in that time, going through chemo and radiation, we found this place. And so the beauty that you see of this place was built through that time. So what did they say? Out of the ashes comes the phoenix. So basically, I think this was what happened here. You know, we were so down, we were so out, we didn't have anything. And then we managed to make Aboro Academy. And I'm sitting here 6 years later. So anything can happen in life.
So I'm going to try in a really short amount of time to tell another crazy story that intersects right where Michele left off. And I just realized the other day that the story of Chozen-ji, where I'm sitting, starts right around the same time as Michele's story started in terms of when she, you know, when she was born in England. And so, you know, to do the counterpart to Michele's story. So Chozen-ji in Hawaii here, the origins of it started in 1970 when there was one guy from Hawaii and one guy from Japan, and they met. And they were both really high-level martial artists. The gentleman from Japan, Omori Sogen, was a swordsman and calligrapher, and also a Zen master, one of the most renowned Zen masters of the 20th century. And the guy from Hawaii, Tanoi Roshi, his day job, he was the band teacher at the high school right down the road. But he was really a prodigy in the martial arts. He had achieved essentially the highest ranking in 7 different martial arts schools by the time he was 32. So he'd had this really phenomenal sort of path in the martial arts, and he was looking for the ultimate teacher. And he meets this guy in Japan, Omori Sogen, and you know, they hit it off. And he essentially asked him to come to Hawaii and start a dojo here. And so they started in 1972, officially founded Chozen-ji, and in 1976, the site where I'm sitting right now, they purchased the land and started building it here. The unique flavor of Chozen-ji coming from those two founders was that they were both, you know, first and foremost martial artists. And so there was a physical training aspect to the Zen training that, you know, really is unique. There aren't many places that have that same focus. In our founding document here, you know, this very short piece that Omori Sogen wrote, you know, one of the critical lines is, he says, "Zen without the accompanying physical experience is nothing but empty discussion." And, you know, that really guides the training here, that most people think of Zen as kind of a philosophy or a religious training or a spiritual aspect, but that to limit it to that is kind of missing a bigger piece of it. And, you know, most people's assumption is that, you know, Zen means your mind is clear and you're calm and relaxed, and really that's true. But the caveat we would add is that we want that under all circumstances. So part of why we do the training that we do here is that we want that to be available when everything's falling down around you. And so we artificially create that condition over and over and over, so that people have actually trained that into them. So they had founded this dojo here. You know, some of the, you know, really critical leaders of Hawaii have trained here, all different walks of life. And so I showed up here in 2003 and started training here. I was pretty young at the time, and trained here very consistently for about 8 years until I got a job offer and moved over to Shanghai. And, you know, when I got there, I thought I would be able to find some people training the same style, this kind of vigorous physical, doing meditation, doing some martial arts, and I really couldn't. So I just opened up a little dojo in my apartment, and we would have people come in the morning and they would come sit there. And then I met another guy who was kind of crazy enough to go all in, and we ended up getting a part of a small lane house where we took the nicest room in the place, emptied it out, and that was 6 days a week in the morning, 3 times a week in the evening. We had people coming and doing meditation there. And what I couldn't figure out was the martial arts component, because, you know, that was a critical piece of the training here. And I couldn't really find much good in Shanghai, at least the arts I had trained, kendo, you know, sword work, those kind of things. And lo and behold, one of our one of our members, Doug Raymond, who had been sitting with us, said one day, "Is it okay if I bring my boxing coach to do Zazen with us?" I said, "Sure." I didn't really think much of it. And Michele showed up and, you know, sat with us. And there was a bit of a sense of, before we started this call being public, she was recounting, I'll let her do it, but she was recounting how crazy it felt to come sit with us. And then I was saying how crazy it felt to go box with her. But, you know, that there was this sense that we were almost like cousins that hadn't seen each other in a long time, that we had a similar background, the training method and the style. And, you know, it was instantly recognizable when Michele came in to sit with us that there was a similarity there. And then she told us that her and Moscow were opening a boxing gym, and we said, sure, we're in. So what we started at that point was, I still think to this day, it was probably the only one in the world that had meditation first and then boxing. We had classes Sunday morning. And Michele had asked us early on, she said, you know, I need some of my fighters to learn some meditation. You know, they train really hard, they do this physical training, but then comes time to get in the ring and fight, and, you know, they lose it somehow. And so that was really where the experiment started, was at Aboro Academy in Shanghai, us doing Zazen, Michele teaching boxing, and bringing a bunch of students from both sides through. And, you know, I wanted to ask you, Michele, you know, one of the stereotypes we get is that, okay, Zen is this spiritual thing or philosophical thing. And, you know, it's sort of shocking for people when we talk about how physical it is. But, you know, I know people make the opposite assumption about boxing, and they think, okay, this is just a physical, it's just training, you're just fighting. And I know I've heard you talk a variety of different ways about how boxing actually is a martial art, and that it also has its own spiritual component. So you want to just talk through that a little bit so people can understand why there's a Zen temple talking to a boxing gym from your side?
Most definitely. You know, I think boxing is a very, very spiritual martial art in itself. You know, a lot of people see it's a Western martial art. Like, you have different martial arts from different places in the world. And I always remember when I say to people, you know, they're like, yeah, boxing, and they don't see it as, they see it as this fighting thing to begin with. And for me, it's a thing of art form. So with every art form, I believe that you need to have a mental, a physical, and a spiritual. Without the three, I think you lose the essence of what it is and the depth of the actual training. So for me, I really believe that meditation is key to being able to tap into your inner being. As I said before, a coach of mine, the first one, who used to light up the incense in the middle of Brixton and have all of us black teenagers sit around this pot of incense and meditate, who we thought was totally crazy, he awakened up our inner being. You know, he tapped on something inside of us that was bigger than ourselves. And I think this is what boxing has, and this is boxing's spirituality. It taps on something bigger than ourselves. And I think that is when meditation, spirituality, whatever you want to call it, comes into play, is that it is able to make a individual into a community, and that community into a force that wants to do for the better good. So this for me is why I see boxing having this depth of spirituality in it.
Yeah, and on our side, from the Zen training standpoint, you know, there definitely is, I mean, the assumptions about, you know, meditation and clearing your mind and, you know, all of those aspects, definitely it's true. And particularly Chozen-ji, where we are, the approach is, well, let's stir that up as much as we can. Let's make the circumstances very difficult. Can you still, you know, meditate, you know, when you're exhausted? Or can you still, you know, continue doing martial art when you're really about to drop on the ground? Can you keep going? And from a Buddhist standpoint, it's like, it's giving you a chance to see your mind and see your habits and see where you get stuck. And then to transcend that is to get bigger than that and to realize your true self. And, you know, that to me, boxing is really a good complement, we do kendo where you put on armor and you fight that way. And boxing is very similar in the sense that it brings out a lot of that the animal response to things. So do I get angry? Do I get anxious? And that, that the process that you're training, again, from a boxing standpoint or a Zen standpoint, is to cut through that, is to not get stuck on that, to see through, your mind racing, to see through, where you get stuck on things. And if you can do that over and over and over, really when you face, kind of the toughest moments in life or the biggest challenges that a human being can face, you've trained yourself to go straight into it and to not get stuck and not, get small. And so, I really see those two pieces, the physical work and the spiritual work as so clearly interconnected. And that was, to me, it was so refreshing when I first met Michele and we started training it. I mean, don't get me wrong, the training was intense and it wasn't easy, but that it really was, it aligned with that spirit of this as a martial art. And this is a way to see your true self more than just to get good at boxing.
Most definitely. No, that is the thing. And I think through adversity, through any kind of difficulty that you come into, it only makes you grow. Living in the comfort zone is comfortable. Yeah, it's good for some. But I think, the only time when you start to actually see who you are as a person, are able to deal with a situation is when something drastic happens and you're able to face it and deal with it rationally. But you need training to be able to do this. If you are not able to deal with a situation that is coming to you and you've never been trained in a situation, say you're in a ring, the first thing you want to do is you want to run. Yeah, this it's built into us. This is part of who we are, fear and flight, But we tell people, no, you don't run, you stay there, you look at it, and you actually figure out a way to deal with that situation. And that what you come up with has to be able to give you the beneficial edge on that other person in front of you. So you need to not only think of how to get out of it, you need to actually think of how you can get out of it and come out on top. So, it puts you into a situation where if you can use and transcend what you use in a boxing gym, what we teach you here, into your everyday life, you're able to deal with it a lot better. You're able to have the resilience to look at situations that are happening that you're petrified, like what's happening now. You don't know what to do. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know the future. Everything is uncertain, but you have this belief and you have this eye that you look forward, and you're able to not put yourself in a position of panic.
Yeah, I remember one time you describing about, actually being in the ring and fighting as sort of the most serenity you ever feel. And I think for a lot of people that would seem strange.
Yeah. I think everybody has a place with what is their temple, where everything kind of comes together and you get this peace and you get this tranquility. And for me, it's the ring. It's when things are being fired at me, when somebody's trying to impose on me their will and their want, when somebody is trying to put me into a situation that I don't want to be in. That's when I become very calm in the ring. It is a tranquil place for me. It is a place where I find peace of mind.
Yeah. And so that's a good jumping off point to talking a little bit about this idea of us training together and what we've been talking about. And that was really the purpose behind about 3 weeks ago, we were talking about, planning this out and who it would be for and all that kind of thing. And then that was where we realized, maybe some other people would like to hear some of this conversation, and the idea behind having this live stream came out of that discussion. But, we've done experiments like this before. Again, we ran a class long time at Aboro Academy. And then we've also done some other other kinds of training together. And what we're looking at doing is a program here in Hawaii at the Zen Temple that would focus on boxing, but that would also, you know, bring in these other aspects of the training here. So there would be meditation in the morning and the evening. There would be some of the other fine arts and martial arts we do here. And the idea again is that coming out of this, we're not thinking we're going to get world champion boxers, and we're not thinking we're necessarily going to get, you know, longtime Zen students. Both of those would be great outcomes. But the idea is more, how do you use this training for people to tackle their lives? How do you use this to not just make great boxers or great Zen students, but actually make great people? And there's something about this recipe of physical training, meditation, training the fine arts, and also just being in an environment that's conducive to that kind of training, how impactful it can be. One of the things that Michele said early on, and it's exactly the same rule we follow here, is that you got to do it at least 3 weeks for it to really have a big impact. We're talking about doing some other maybe 1 weeks in there, so for people who can't come for the whole 3 weeks. But maybe you can talk a little about why 3 weeks is a magical time for people to actually go deep and get something out of it.
Well, 3 weeks is that magical number where we actually change the way we think and see and do things. It's an amount of time where we can reset some of the bad habits we have, and we can replace them with the good habits that we've been doing. So 3 weeks of training will allow people to take in what we are giving them to replace what they feel they need to come to this training to get. For me, the thing is that it's not just about the boxing. For me, the most empowering thing is about what you're doing there, as Michael, as the priest there. I think it's astounding thing. And as I said before, boxing is an art. And all of the other things that you're doing, the art forms that you are doing and you are giving to people there, allows them to grow tenfold in their everyday life. And I think if we can put this into a 3-week training program where people can come in and they can actually push themselves on all different levels of their being. As you said before, we're not looking for world champion boxers, we're not looking for people that are going to be die-hard Zazen students, Zen students, but we're looking for people that want to change part of them, little bits of them that can transcend into their everyday life. And that's the important thing about this training.
Yeah, and I promised Masca that I would make sure everybody knows that this is definitely open to beginners, and that the idea here is that, and I know I've experienced the same thing at Aboro Academy, is that you can really meet somebody wherever they're at, and you find out where that limit is, and you push a little bit further. I think we have on the call today, one of the attendees is Dr. Ho Tran, and she was here last year. She was all of 72 years old, and she was very sincere about her approach, and she did the hardest training that we offer in December, this week-long, very intensive training, and she pushed it. She really pushed it hard, and so we're really adept at making sure we're matching where people are at. And the thing that matters most to us is sincerity. We'll happily take people whose bodies aren't in great shape or people struggling with other things in life, but that they're ready to really dig in deep with what the offering is. And so we're very open to beginning boxing students or beginning Zen students. And then, you know, we will be looking at ways for other ways for local students to come possibly join, you know, throughout the day, or, you know, other ways maybe where they can't come actually stay here. But, you know, to reiterate what Michele was saying, and we haven't addressed it, I think we kind of labeled the title of this as Finding Clarity in the Midst of Chaos. And we haven't addressed exactly what's going on in the world right now. And, you know, I know we see it here and you see it there as, I mean, definitely there's terrible things happening and there's stuff that requires immediate attention, but that this whole moment in the world also is an opportunity for us all to push things in a way we haven't before. And one of the things here, we always use the word training much more than we use the word practice. There's elements where you'll practice something over and over, but you can't practice for what we're experiencing right now, but you can train for it. You can train to dive into a difficult situation over and over and over again, so that when something else comes up, you're ready to do it. And so we'll see if travel is possible in September. It's really hard to tell now. If it's not, we'll find another time in the future to do this. That part I'm not concerned about at all. But I think we'll still be in the throes of a world that desperately needs a new way to look at things and needs courage in a way that it hasn't in a long time. And I see this kind of training as, if not the most important, one of the most important things we can all do, is to create people and leaders who have really dug deep and swept out the corners of their life so that they're ready to tackle whatever comes up.
Most definitely. I totally agree and feel you on that one. I think what's happened, we're kind of for anybody that's in the rest of the world and not in China, we're like a month ahead of you guys, maybe a little bit more when it comes to this virus and the spread of it. And we're in a stage now, as you said earlier, that we can open the gym, we can commence in the new norm, because things will never be the same again. This is what we're experiencing here in China, that it is not the same. Things have changed. The thing is, what I'm starting to see is people have become a lot more mindful, and people have become more patient, aware, open to others. I hope that this is a long-term effect from this, because we have to change. Everything's screaming out that we need to change, we must change, but we have to change on so many different levels on what we see as progression in our society. And something like the training that we're looking to do in September, if it's possible to happen, will help people find a way of progressing in the right way. To whatever they're doing. It doesn't matter if they're still in that corporate world of, go forward and die, but they're able to take the tools that we're able to give them from this training and incorporate them into their lives. And I think this is very important in what's happening today, to, be able to incorporate, because your life doesn't stop. You're still going to have to live the life that you have been living. You still have to bring in a paycheck, if there's jobs when this finishes, to be able to pay the bill. But you need to look at how you're impacting the environment and the society around you.
Yeah, absolutely. And, and so just to be clear, as we're talking about this kind of training, it's open to beginners, absolutely. And that said, it's going to be very hard training, not just physical training, but hard spiritual training. If we do it right, at some point during it, everybody will consider, I don't know if I should have done this. This is tough, and it could be that you're, exhausted. It could also be that you're facing, some things that you've been able to kind of neatly tuck away for a while. And all of a sudden, as you're training more, the floodgates are opening. And so it really is designed to push people's limits physically and spiritually, wherever anybody is. And that part, I know Michele is truly an expert at that. And we have our decades of experience here of just getting all kind of people and just being able to see where are they at, what can we do to just go that little bit more right now and let go of that one thing that's holding you back. Let go of that one part of self-doubt. Let go of that one thing that you're holding on to from 30 years ago that's not helping you out at this point. And I know you get all kind of people training in different ways. And before we just open up to some outside questions, my one question for you, I wanted to ask is just, why does the training have to be so hard?
In adversity, we grow. No, no, I believe that, as I said I think I said this to you earlier, I'm not sure if I said it on here, but I have a couple of new PTs and they were sparring with each other, big guys. And I said to them, why are you just continuously sitting in your comfort zone? You're not going to learn anything there. Nothing's going to change there. and you know you're just going to stay the same there. And that's the same with training. If we can all sit in our comfort zone, we can all be very comfortable, but at the end of the day, is it going to give us something that we can actually do something with? No. It's just going to keep us in a place where life will keep on going. Things will be okay. I can say, woohoo, I done my training session today. And I go home, you know, I take some selfies and I've been in the gym. I don't want people to come in my gym and say, woohoo, I've done some training today, take some selfies and then post this on their social media. I want people to come in and say, whoa, you know, this has just shaken up something in me. You know, it's made me look at myself as a totally different person than when I walked into that door today. I want them to look at themselves to learn something new, to be something new, to change the way that they perceive themselves. So this is why the training needs to be hard, is because only in moments like this are we able to actually have this shift on all different levels, mental, physical, spiritual.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a question we get here as well. And our abbot, Sayama Dayan, his answer is, the training's hard because life is hard.
Yeah.
You know, and if you're not, you know, we talk about sometimes, you know, that whatever you're experiencing the training most likely is not going to be the hardest thing you face in life. And that hardest thing is still going to be there at some point. And so if you're not getting ready for it, you're essentially avoiding that. And from a Zen and Buddhism standpoint, for a lot of people, that hardest thing is that aspect of suffering, and that, you know, everybody you love and know is going to pass away. And these are tough existential questions that, again, we're very good at pushing away or avoiding or not having to deal with them until it starts coming up. And I think the moment that we're in right now, that's coming up more for people than it normally is. And in that sense, you know, we feel really ready to tackle some of those, you know, those folks having those questions. And as unconventional as it may sound, I mean, definitely meditation is part of this, but martial arts and really, you know, letting go, really going for it 100% is what allows people to start, you know, to realize who they really are and what they're really capable of. And, you know, in my experience, I haven't seen anything more effective than that. And in particular, boxing and kendo, there's something there with those two, because there's actually somebody hitting you back. And so whatever you think, one of the, you know, the classic boxing quotes, which I think is very pertinent right now, is the Mike Tyson, everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the face. You know, and I think that's what we're all experiencing right now, is like people had very good conceptual and intellectual, you know, reasons and, you know, for their life to be the way it was. And all of a sudden everything's out the window. And it's actually a really good opportunity to take that chance, rather than shy away from it or tuck it away neatly or push it away, to actually dig into it more than we normally would. So I know Christina just posted that we're open if folks have any questions. Feel free to type them into the chat. I can talk to Michele all day. You know, we can we can keep doing this if people are enjoying it. The other thing I wanted to let people know about coming here to Chozen-ji in Hawaii is, you know, we actually, you know, we're in quarantine right now. And, you know, there's a few of us who live here and we're still keeping the regular schedule, but our normal student body isn't able to come up here and train with us. But it's been very good pressure on us to keep training,
yeah,
you know, on our own. And, you know, I just see one question coming through, Andrew, I was about to say, which is, as much as you can for everybody, you know, who's trained here or other things, is as much as you can right now is to keep something going. It could be sitting for 5 minutes at home. It could be, you know, 10 minutes. I know you've experimented some, Michele, with doing long distance classes and things like that for people. But the question that Andrew dropped in was, you know, how can people prepare to get ready to do that kind of training that we're talking about?
For me, it's a point of that, you know, if you can train your body physically, from my point of view, if you can do this, start preparing your body. Like anything, you need to prepare it to be able to go through something like any kind of exam. You prepare, you study, and you go forward and you do it. So if you can start preparing physically, if you can run, you run. If you can only do exercises at home, what you can do here, because you're on lockdown, you guys there, you do them at home. You know, you just find the stuff that is around your house, because there's enough stuff in your house that you can make a workout in your house. It's just a point of getting your body, all parts of your body, to physically train.
Yeah, and you just reminded me, is as we see how things progress with travel and things like that, we will be, for the folks in Hawaii, we will have some aspect of the boot camp before the boot camp. So we'll make sure that there's a way for people to get ready out here as we prepare for that, so we can use that 3 weeks. And then I see one question there from Sayama Roshi, who is the avid of Chozen-ji. And I think it was because I mentioned it the other day, but just so you can give people a little taste of how intense the meditation is. And we had talked about it the other day, but if you mind just sharing with everybody what your experience was, Michele, when you first did Zazen with us.
Okay, so I was going in, I have meditated before, and I done Nichiren Daishonin Buddhism for a long time. But when I was in Shanghai at that moment in time, I wasn't practicing anything. I can remember going into this lane house. Doug is one of our crazy students and one of our crazy mutual friends. And with Doug, you can never be certain, you know, what you're going to get. So he said, yeah, we sit, you know, we meditate, and then we go home. So I was like, oh, cool, you know. So we went up. I met Michael, I met Carl. Beautiful space. They did give up the most beautiful room for this, most definitely. So we all sat. And Michael explained what we would do and how we would do it. But I thought, I'm going to close my eyes and I'm going to go into, you know, this kind of pose and just sit there nicely in whatever form I would want to. So then Michael was like, no, cross your legs, keep your eyes open, sit, make sure that you're nice and tall and don't move. So I'm like, no problem, you know. But going through this meditation with your eyes open and the excruciating pressure on your body to want to move because you can't move as well is intense. And then Michael has his eyes all around it, looking at everything, every possibility. And if you move, they tell you quite nicely, but quite firmly, please do not move, you know, in a way that puts the fear of God into you. So we sat, I think, the first time for about 20, 25 minutes. And I must say, I could not feel my lower extremities. My legs were actually dead. And I didn't realize it because I couldn't feel them anymore. So I tried to stand up and really could not stand up. And for me, it was this realization that I have control of my body, or the belief I have control of my body. I have control of my will and my spirit. I believed it because I have been through, you know, the valley of hell to get to where I am. So I believed that I had most things under control until I sat there, and it really made me question myself of what I thought meditation was, what I thought entering myself was. And actually sitting there and having to confront all of these things that were happening inside of me and coming to peace with them was really difficult. So I carried on coming to Michael because it was totally uncomfortable experience in the beginning.
So, and then just to follow up, I had essentially the exact same experience when I went to box with Michele. So, you know, it was a mutual appreciation there. One question here, Michele, and I'll rephrase it here from Prentice, who's one of our members at Chozen-ji, talking about grief and how physical training like this is applicable to dealing with particularly the kind of grief people are feeling right now, going through this, you know, kind of traumatic experience as a world?
So yeah, when you look at it, the amount of people that are dying from this virus, and the amount of families that have been separated because of this virus. Myself, I haven't seen my partner, my wife, and my child in 3 months because they're in Hong Kong and they cannot get back into China. But I think, you know, I believe, no, I don't think, I believe that, you know, with this kind of training, it enables you to look at what's happening realistically. And it enables you to be able to make choices. Hopefully they'll are the right choices to be able to deal with the situation that is at hand. We know what we need to do. We know how we have to control the situation. Yeah, it's not making them crazy choices when, for that second, when we're like, okay, let's just go out and see Peter, you know, and drive over to see Peter. It doesn't make sense. It's a point of just being able to control yourself, control what's happening with you, and take things as they come, actually, because there is no certainty at the moment. There's only uncertainty. And if we can try to, like you're keeping your structure, your schedule where you are, to keep that certainty, to hold on to the parts that you can hold on to make it that when some type of normality comes about, we can just carry on with the normality that we've built up inside of this. And I think this is the thing for me. When I was on lockdown at home, I kept my routine. I would do my training. We would make videos for our community to post in our group. We would live stream. We came up with ways that we didn't even know we could do. And we would do them because of dealing with the situation, how it was, and trying to transcend what we were doing to a larger community, a larger population, saying to people, share this with friends so that they can see that there are people, crazy people. There's me, this 50-year-old woman, 52-year-old, in her front room doing jumping jacks, you know, posting these things so that people could look at it and they could be, okay, if she can do it, that crazy woman in her front room, I can do it, you know? And so this was the way that we tried to use what we had and what we had learned and the community that we were involved in to try to deal with this situation and the grief that it's, you know, pulling on us, and to come out at the other end.
Yeah, I think from the Zen side, you know, that's why we really tend to focus on the body. We have a saying in the Zen world of you can't wash away blood with blood. And this idea that, you know, if you know, the thoughts and the rumination and the anxiety and all these things, that you almost have to use a different approach to cut through them, that I can't think my way out of being anxious. And that's where I really think, you know, physical training, breathing, posture, you know, very physical oriented meditation is a way to cut through that over and over. It doesn't mean don't experience it. It means experience it fully and then let it go. And I think, you know, as if you're out of your body, it's very easy to hold on to this stuff in your mind and let it, you know, just swim around. And that having these physical tools to cut through, whether it's martial arts training or meditation or these things, to just kind of reset over and over and over, is really critical. This also, there's a question here that I think is worth addressing, that was from Molly, saying, I've been socialized to not be violent, but I feel a pull towards physical Zen practice. Can you help me through this internal conflict I'm feeling around physical practice with an opponent or partner and the years of messaging I've received around not being violent? So you want to talk about boxing being really peaceful, Michele?
Yes. Boxing is not you know, the outcome of it is in competition, the outcome of it in a competition is to win by striking another person. The essence of boxing is about learning to control yourself, learning to control the violent aspects of yourself. As human beings, we all have these different tendencies in us. And with training boxing or any other martial arts, what it does for you is it teaches you to hone these things in. not to make them into something more. So we do not abide in our gym by any bullying tactics, by anybody pushing somebody else at all. That person will be expelled from our gym because we believe that this is a communal thing. Everybody helps everybody else to grow. And it's not a thing taken from the stance of that, you know, I'm bigger, I'm badder than you, I'm a better fighter than you, so I'm going to hit you. You know, the end result of boxing, as I said in the beginning, is about a competition. And in that competition, there is contact. But there is contact in a lot more other sports as well. And there's sometimes when it's not done with a physical encounter and it's done with a verbal encounter, that can be far more devastating to a person than a physical encounter. So I would say that the way that we teach boxing, martial arts, is that people learn to respect, they have discipline, and they use what they learn not for violent encounters. So I don't see boxing as a violent sport. I see people that misuse boxing or any kind of martial art, making it violent. But boxing in its whole, in its essence, in itself, is not violent.
And I can speak, you know, from the kendo side, which again, everybody who comes, I think in September will get a chance to experience that as well, is that, you know, you're hitting each other over the head with bamboo swords. Now you're wearing armor and it's you know, it's very hard to actually get hurt, but it brings out a lot of that, you know, the animal baggage of you're hitting somebody else and there's aggression and these kind of things. But the purpose of doing it is to cut through it. Part of why we do it in a controlled environment is that at the end of the class, we bow to each other, and, you know, all of these things were done from a point of view of respect, and it starts to change it so that, you know, we can, you know, have these kind of encounters that don't necessarily feel violent. To address, Nolan had a question in there about striking martial arts versus kind of grappling and things like that. You know, I think both can be useful when you have an opponent to get that feedback of like, oh, wow, I got really angry right then. You know, where did that come from? Or I got really, you know, frustrated, like I wanted to give up. And it's, you know, by having an opponent versus something like, you know, Iaido or something that archery where you practice by yourself, it doesn't bring out a lot of that, you know, animal, you know, kind of response. And that, you know, we're not doing that as an end, we're doing that as a way to cut through that, you know, the way we train here. And I think the nice thing about the striking martial arts and boxing and kendo is that it's explosive in a moment, you know, and that you're not, you know, the strategy, there's not as much rumination about strategy as you have to respond moment by moment versus kind of like, you know, a slow moving process through some of these other ones.
No, most definitely. I totally agree with you on that one. It's about, you know, when you have another person in front of you, you know, it's a great mirror too. You know, you see all of these habits you have, you know, anger, fear, hatred, all of these negativities that come swimming up inside of you when you are practicing, you know, and learning how to confront them and deal with them, because they're not going to help you here. They're just going to, you know, put you into a predicament. So being able to have a martial art or a sport that puts them to your face and makes you look at them and says, yeah, you have these ghosts inside of you, face them, deal with them, but don't hide them and put them away. As you said earlier, bring them up, deal with them, look at them, and put them in the right place. And I think boxing is a great way of dealing with that. It's like in any sport, anything, I think, in life. If you have a good mentor around you, a good coach, a good leader, they're going to bring out the best in you, and they're going to be able to show you that art, that sport in a better light. You know, if you have somebody around you that just says, yeah, let's hit people, let's fight, of course it's going to be a horrible situation. And what comes out of it are just people that are learning to survive.
Yeah. So, you know, we're about an hour now, and we have a little bit more time we can keep going. For anybody who has to jump off, if you want to stay tuned to what ends up happening with the travel schedule and all these things, there's a sign in on the Chozen-ji page that we put up for this. You can also send us a email or a private message with your email address. I would, follow Aboro Academy, follow Chozen-ji on social media, and we'll put out updates. And we're gonna hopefully get a video of this chat, and people can, refer it to somebody else if they want, if they weren't able to make it today. One of the questions that's come up in a few different ways here is, just more questions about this actual 3-week training and what it will look like, and also how somebody from a long distance could both get prepared and also have a longer term relationship. So from a structure standpoint, we're going to run this essentially like how we keep our regular monastery schedule here. So you're going to be waking up pretty early in the morning, and there's going to be right out of the gate some meditation, and then there'll be some physical training in the morning, most likely boxing in the morning. And so by 7 a.m., you will have already done a lot of activity. And then part of the training is actually going to be, there's going to be a specific diet, and people are going to be, getting healthy, getting in their bodies. We're going to be doing some outside work, just like how we would normally do here. It might be moving some heavy stones or, splitting some logs, those kind of things. And then we're going to be adding in a fine arts component. So the things that are going to be available is ceramics, calligraphy, possibly tea ceremony, and some things that might seem like a very strange fit for a boxing training, and even sometimes a strange fit for Zen training. But it's really the Chozen-ji method, and also Michele's approach to boxing being much broader than just the boxing component. But the thing we haven't figured out yet that I think would be a next step is, and we've talked about it a little bit, is that maybe doing an online introduction, where people could get a little taste of how Michele runs a class. I know next Saturday we didn't do it today because of this chat, but during the stay-at-home order, we've been doing online Zazen instructions at 8 a.m. Hawaii time Saturday morning, so people can get a taste of what it feels like, the way we sit, and just kind of the length of time and how that feels in your body, and you can start to decide if that's a good match. And then longer term here, we have a lot of students, some who are on this chat now who don't live in Hawaii, who come out here periodically to train with us, and they're able to keep a practice going at home and keep it somewhat vigorous, and they come out here for a blast once or twice a year. And my dream would be that we can figure out, a way to get Michele and Moscow out here periodically as well, to come do some of this training with us longer term. So right now we just have a plan for this first 3-week training, but based on its success and who comes, I think we're all very open to the idea that there would be a really great collaboration in the future. I trust Michele as much as I trust anybody in a training environment, and it's a really perfect match for what we do here.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. And the training itself, if you stay posted, that website that we use to publicize this chat, we'll add this video to it, but we'll also, as we get the schedule figured out and those kind of things, we'll add some more information on there. So I would stay tuned to that, stay tuned to our social media and those kind of things. Any other last comments, Michele?
No, I'm just looking forward to us being able to deliver this training. I'm really, really, psyched about it, very much so. But two, as we are leading up, if everything gets back to some kind of new norm and we can fly, and September is a date that we can actually execute, beforehand, I will look at posting some live or recorded video footage that people can know what it looks like and how it feels to do a boxing class.
Great. Yeah, and like I said, we've been trying to do this during this lockdown, is that we've been doing a little bit more online. I mean, we're full believers that Zen training needs to happen in person, and there's something different when you're in the room and training together, but these are the conditions we have right now. So we've been doing that every Saturday morning and encouraging people to continue that at home. again, you can follow up with any email questions to us. You know, we're very much from the same family of that. When there's somebody who's sincere and wants to train hard, we pull out all the stops.
Yep.
And so, you know, let us know what your challenges are, what could be holding you back from this training. And I think we'll have a lot of solutions for anybody who's really sincerely interested in coming out and doing this. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, Michele. Again, I could keep going for a while, but I think this is a pretty good spot to wrap up. You know, we'll be in touch again with everybody via digital realm, and feel free to reach out with any other follow-up or questions, and we'll hopefully see some of you out here in September. And you know, we might have quarantine rules, and I can say if there's one place where you have to quarantine and can't leave the grounds, this is about as good as it gets. So you know, you're all welcome to come here when we have the right conditions for that to be possible.
I just like to, on the last note, just say, you know, everybody who's in lockdown, that take care, look after yourself, keep in contact with your loved ones, family members, and look after yourself.
Yeah, I'll end with the one story. We posted this a little while ago, but after September 11th in 2001, Tanoe Roshi was still alive, and he had called up all the members to the dojo here. And the bell that you see behind me there, it's actually, it was a gift from the city of Kyoto to the city of Honolulu, and we ended up with it here at the dojo. But it's actually a peace bell. It was a symbol of peace between the countries, you know, not so long after World War II. And so he called all the members up here and had them all go up and ring the bell. That was, you know, that was sort of like our contribution. We're in Hawaii. We're a long way away from New York. But his message to all the members was, you know, now's the time where the world's depending on us. Train hard. Our spirit counts. So that's my message to everybody today, is wherever you are, whatever you're doing, is your spirit counts. So thank you for joining. Thanks so much, Michele and Aboro Academy, Carl, Masca, Christina. Hopefully see you guys soon.
Definitely.
All right. Aloha.